Hey guys, welcome back to Talkin Hawkins, our Stranger Things review. Welcome to Project Potter, guys. My name is Kyler, your host. Guys, the penultimate episode of season 2 does not disappoint. If you have not seen the series before, guys, what I do is my thoughts on the episode, kind of my favorite scenes, a Hawkins hero, which is my favorite character, a mouth breather, which is my least favorite character, and a score to 10, guys. So I have noted that season 2 is kind of missing that oomph, that like big punch, that big episode. There's been some really good episodes in there, but it's kind of been sprinkled in between a lot of like mediocre to average to below average episode, like last week with the Lost Sister. But guys, we're back here. This is a really good one. So jumping into things I liked, guys, just off the bat. I mean, obviously, guys, the whole crew, the whole squad getting together, amazing. And this is in no particular order. But yeah, Hopper, Nancy, Jonathan meeting up with the kids, Max kind of being introduced to everyone. Obviously, 11 coming back at the end is incredible. And I think I usually will go over these in like kind of plot by plot or point by point to try and put it in some sort of cohesive order. But for this one, guys, there's just so much going on that I just want to talk about it. So yeah, I will say, guys, Bob obviously making the great sacrifice. He's the only one that knows code. So he's like, basic. He's like, I didn't think so, doctor. And so the lights go out. And it's just like, oh my God, way to set the tone, dude, with like the Demigorgons. If you guys remember, they were coming up through and like before last week's episode, on episode 6, the hand came up and it was like, oh shit. And Hopper's there and they know that shit's about to go down. They're like, oh, don't worry, the glass is here. They're not going to get through. It's like super reinforced. And then like 4 or 5 Demigorgons come out and they start hitting the glass. And they're like, are you sure about that glass? And the doctor hits the alarm and it's like the sirens start going off and the lights are flashing and it makes for a great horror atmosphere. Like, fantastic. We get so many cool shots to the hallways. They kind of start retreating and the Demigorgons just take over the entire facility, dude. They just wipe everyone out and it's horrifying. It's like, man, there's corpses everywhere. People are bloody. Their faces are ripped off. Their chests are ripped open. It's like an episode of The Walking Dead, honestly. It's crazy. Our main cast here, which is basically Mike, Joyce, Bob, the crew behind me, guys, the doctor, Hopper, Bob, Joyce, and Mike, they're all trapped in here. And then, of course, Will is in here. But, guys, we've realized that Will is being used as a spy, and so they really can't. It's not much of Will left in there, but we'll get into that. They really can't trust him. So, Joyce sits him down, and she goes, hey, who am I? And he goes, your mom. And then she trusts him with that. But I'm like, he called you mom, but it took a while. But Joyce is like, he's still in there. They have to give him drugs to put him to sleep because if he is awake, he's going to like tell the Mind Flayer where to get him. And yes, we do get the name the Mind Flayer finally. So I knew it was called the Mind Flayer. I didn't want to spoil anything, guys, but we get like the name for this creature that's above Hawkins, which is really cool and kind of in through Will and tormenting Hawkins to try and kill everyone. That's all really awesome stuff. So then they have to like carry Will. The Demigorgons are coming through and they're like, we got to go. And they finally like get trapped up in a room and they're like, okay, we need a plan. Then the power goes out. Like I said, guys, it's just awesome. But they're like, we got to put the power back on. Okay, well, even if we get to the front doors, we can't get out the front doors because they're safety locked. And they're like, can we reset the doors? And that's when Bob is like, yeah, but you have to know code. And then so he's like, Bob's like, all right, I guess it's me. Hopper gives him the gun and he's like, you know how to use one of these? He's like, no. And he's like, okay, safety on, safety off. And then like the lights, the alarms are flashing. So it's like going through and it's just really, really awesome lighting. And like you'll see Hopper giving instructions and then it goes dark and his face comes back up in the light. Excellent job with the cinematography in this one. It's always a well-produced show, but like Duffer Brothers were in their bag in this one, let me tell you. The scene where the group meets up and Jonathan and Nancy pull up, I love how they're just like the lights are out. And Nancy's like, oh, maybe it's closed. And he's like, well, and security's just taking the night off. And they're like pressing the open button. And then they see someone come out of the woods and it's Steve. And then Jonathan and Nancy just go, Steve? And they go, what are you doing here? And I'm like, we're looking for Mike and Will. What are you doing here? It's like, yeah, kind of the same thing, I guess. And it's just fun to see the group get all together. And then they're trying to get into the gate. And he's like, oh, it's not working. And then the power comes back on, it's not working. And then Dustin goes over, he's like, let me try it. And then he's like, Jonathan, let me try it. And he's just pressing the button super fast. It's really good stuff. And then eventually, obviously, the gate comes open. And there's a really, really great intense scene where Bob is being led down and the doctor is like leading him on because they take like the dead police officers like walkie and He's like, okay, take a right. And he's like his eyes and ears. So he's on the security cameras and he's like, okay, go to your right. And he's like, stop. He's like, stop exactly where you are. He's like, there's a closet to your left. Bob's like, okay. He's like, I need you to get in that closet, Bob. And he's like holding his breath there. The Demogorgon goes by. And then when Bob gets out, slow motion, tragically, there's a mop that falls, which I like it because it's realistic. And it's like, hey, you ever been in a fucking mop closet? The shit just falls out all the time. It's like that great scene in Spider-Man 2. But the mop falls out, and that is ultimately what leads to Bob's demise, because the Demogorgon who's walking by, it drops, and then the Demogorgon's like, oh. Demogorgon's like, you trying to sneak past me, fool? This like leads to kind of a outbreak or run, and then they're all running there. Bob actually gets on their side, and then he's like, and he sees Joyce and he has a smile, and then the Demogorgon comes out and just tackles him, dude. Just comes out of left field and takes him down, and it sinks its claws into him. It like cocks back, dude. It's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, Bob. And it takes him down, and then he's just got a goner. And Hopper comes in, but he's a little late with the gun, and he takes a couple shots, but it's like Bob is clearly like not doing well. And then a couple more come through, and it's like these are going to break through, and they're like, dude, we got to go. And Joyce is like screaming, and two of the Demogorgons break down the door. So then now there's like three of them, and it's like, dude, this is not a good fight for us. So it's basically overrun. They need to get by. The Dr. Owens decides to stay in the back there, and that's how he like leads Bob in there. So he kind of goes down with the ship. I don't know if he's dead or not. I think we find out next episode, but we'll see what's happening. And then the rest of the episode, guys, they go back to the Byers house, and I love how the Byers house is just never normal. Like, it's either got the letterings from season 1 on there and ripped up and axes through the wall and stuff. And then obviously through season 2, it's been like the map that's all around there, and they left that up and stuff. So that's cool. But they all kind of go back there. Hopper calls for backup, but he's like, Chief Hopper, I need backup. And I don't think they believe him or something, but it's like, if the chief is calling in help, don't you think he would believe him? I don't know. But basically the whole group's together. It's really, really great, dude. And they're planning, and they got Will, and they're like, all right, well, it's the Mind Flayer. And there's the thing about Mind Flayer, and Dustin says like, okay, how do we kill it? And he's like, what do we shoot fireballs at it? And he's like, no. He's like, you have to raise an undead army to attack it. And he's like, and then Hopper's like, what are we doing here? And then they're like, well, no, we have to kill it. Joyce is like, I want to kill that thing. And they're like, yeah, but we don't even know how. And it's like, well, we're going to figure it out. And they're like, you know what? We need to talk to Will. Will is connected to this thing. Will is going to know how to take this thing down. And they're like, but we can't trust Will. And they're like, well, Mike says he's the spy, but he's like, he can't spy if he doesn't know where he is. Oh, so they go out to the shed out back. They throw all the shit out of it. They put up these really bright lights, so it kind of like blocks them out. They strap Will to the chair, and then they like wake him up. They use like some sort of super strong like scent to wake him up. And he gets up and he's like, what is this? He's like, why am I tied up? I'm like, we just want to talk to you, Will. And then there's like a great sequence. Man, Winona Ryder and the dude who plays Jonathan Byers, they both just crush it. I mean, everyone's really good, even Mike in this one too. But they're all kind of crying, and they're sitting down and they're going over their fondest memories with Will, where Joyce is like, remember that big crayon box I got you? She's like, you used every single color in the box. She made like the rainbow. She's like, rainbow something. I forget what she calls it, but she's like crying there, and Jonathan sits down. And she's like, remember the day Dad left? And, we sat up all night listening to music. And then like we built Castle Byers, and it started raining. And he's like, we didn't even care because we just wanted to build it. And he's like, we were sick for a week after. And it's so, so touching and moving. It's great. And Will is like sitting there, and they think they're getting to him. And then Mike is like, remember in kindergarten? He's like, I didn't have any friends. I had no one. I was so alone. And he's like, I reached out to you, and I just said, do you want to be my friend? And he said, yes. And it's like, oh, it's a nice moment for Mike, because I feel like he's taken a back seat in this season a lot. And it's good for him to be like, oh, he is Will's best friend. And it's like, we don't get to see a lot of that because Will was gone for most of the season in season 1. And then in this one, he's been all weird. And poor Mike hasn't had just his normal friend for like 2 years or whatever. So that's a really, really nice moment there. But Will is like, he's like kind of smiling, and he's like, get me out of here. And so they're like, oh, we're not getting to it. What good is this? But then Hopper notices that Will is tapping on the seat, and they're like, oh my God, it's Morse code. And it's really cool because they have like a Morse code alphabet thing in the Byers house for some reason. But they go over there, and then like, it's really, really awesome because Hopper's standing there, and they're kind of hiding the walkie. And then every time Will taps on the chair. They're doing the same amount of, I think it's Hopper doing the same amount of stuff through the walkie. And then the kids are in the other room and they're getting it and they're writing down and they're like, okay. And it ends up saying close gate. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's just really awesome to see all them working together. And it's just like to see Steve and the kids interact with Jonathan and Nancy and Joyce and Hopper, and everything is awesome. But there's one thing that I forgot, guys, and this is a bit of a stretch, but the phone rings and they're like, oh shit. And then they go over and they pick up the phone and they hang it up real quick. And then it rings again. And they pick it up and then Nancy just rips out of the wall and throws it down. And I'm like, damn, Nancy. Okay, Natalia, are you free later? And then Steve is like, dude, that's just a phone. He's like, it could be anywhere. But then somehow the mind flayer knows that like Will's eyes are like darting in his eyelids, and the mind flayer's like going through, and they're like shit, and they like put Will back to sleep, and they're like, it knows where we are. And I'm like, how though? Because Steve's right, like it is just a phone, it could be anywhere. But I guess it figured out maybe it's a similar ring or something, or it heard the ring and it heard them smash it. I don't know, but like obviously this is like a being that's taken over Will. It's pretty intelligent, and it's not that much of a stretch to say that like it figured it out. But they're like, we got to move. And then they hear like the Demogorgons coming, and then one goes through the wall, and you're like, is this like a suicide Demogorgon? But it's like beat up, and it's like, it's clearly dead. And then they're like, oh, who could it be? And I'm like, oh, dude, I forgot. And the door busts open, and Eleven's standing there, dude, and she's still got her hair slicked back, and she's still bitching. But it's just really great because the music's playing, and Mike is like super happy to see her, and Hopper obviously super happy to see her. And it's just like, it's such a cool dynamic because first of all, not only is it tense, and Hopper's got like a gun and he's like, can you use this? And he talks to Jonathan and he's got a rifle, and he's like, and she's like, I can. And Nancy is like volunteers. He's like, good. He's like, and then Nancy's like ready to go, and they're all cocked and ready to go. Not only is it intense, right? And it's like scary, but then Elle shows up, and like because of the group dynamic, it's like Steve, I don't think has met Elle, so he doesn't know who the hell she is. Max doesn't know who Elle is. But then there's people like Mike that really care about her. Hopper, obviously, it's like a daughter to him. And then there's like people who are less familiar, but still familiar, like Joyce. It's just awesome. And the kids like must be excited. And it's just really great. And obviously they need Elle's firepower to take down these. She just took down a Demogorgon, and it's like, oh, dude, let's go. Whole crew's here, season finale. And it's like, let's fucking go. Okay, guys, Hawkins Hero. The cast was so damn good. And there were a lot of people that really stood out to me in this one. But guys, we don't get to the Byers' house if it's not for Bob the Brain. And so Sean Astin, man, he did really good job with his role, where he's really playing the hero part in every sense of the word in the last bit there. And could he have fought off the Demogorgon? Possibly. I mean, he seemed strong enough where he probably could have thrown it off or something. But I mean, that thing got on him pretty quickly. He was taken off guard, and it just sunk its claws into him. So I get it, but yeah, I think he was excellent. Like, you know, he was clearly scared, but he's like, it's got to be me. He like knew his role. He understood the assignment, guys. Okay, he went out there and he's like, I get it. He's like, no one else knows code. No one's going to know how to use this damn computer to open the doors or reset the stuff. And so he's like putting the sprinklers on to revert the Demogorgons and stuff like that. I just loved how everyone works as a team. But Bob is the one who stood out for me, and he went out like a hero, man. And he really made the rest of this episode possible. So Sean Astin, great job, man. And Bob the Brain, man, R.I.P. Okay, guys, the mouth breather for this one. Guys, I'm actually going to say that we don't have any mouth breathers for this one. The whole cast was just phenomenal, and there wasn't really anyone that stood out. There weren't any bad performances. I loved just everything about this episode, and I don't think that I can honestly put someone as my least favorite character or my worst character, because the scene I didn't even touch on, guys, we get a great scene with Billy and his dad, who was like kind of a piece of shit, where I think it's his dad is dating a girl, Susan, and it's her daughter, Max, which is why he's like, we're not brother and sister. But, you know, Max goes out the window, and Billy comes home. Billy's there, and then they're like, oh, you know, where's Max? Her window's open and she's not in her room. And he's like, oh shit, I don't know. He's like, she probably went to the arcade or something. They're like, you were supposed to watch her. And he's like, yeah, but you guys were 3 hours late, so now I have a date. And then his dad like gets physical with them, and he's like, okay, so is that why you were staring at yourself, you know, for 3 hours in the mirror? And he uses another word that I don't want to use here, guys. You can see why Billy is kind of the way he is. And you can also tell that, like, even though Billy is acting up a little bit, the dad is like, oh, you're going to cancel whatever date you have with this whore, and then you're gonna go find your sister. And I'm like, oh, dude, I can see. And he like slaps him, and I'm like, abusive fathers, you never want that. And even Susan is like, dude, it's okay, don't worry. He's like, it's not okay. And it's like, dude, you're going to lose your woman, because she's going to be like, yeah, I'm not into this abusive father lifestyle. So anyway, guys, that's a good scene, a really great scene, actually. And it makes you actually feel a lot of sympathy for Billy. And for the first time in the series, I can't give anyone like the mouth breather. I mean, I guess maybe Billy's dad, but like, I don't think he was a big enough part of this, where I think everyone else was really good and really great. And I just think the whole cast was phenomenal. So for the first time in this series, guys, we are going to do no mouth breather. Hey guys, that brings us to the score. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is a great episode. It's really one of the best episodes of Stranger Things, I think, between the music and just the different story threads. And you guys have heard me say these things before, so I feel like kind of a broken record, but the sacrifice that we get from Bob, but just the way that the whole group is working together. There's no character in here that feels like they're there just to be there, you know? Steve is helping out. Mike obviously is reaching Will and kind of figures out like, yo, we need to like set Will up in the shed so that he can't spy on us. Bob obviously makes the sacrifice. The doctor, Dr. Owens, who always was a good guy, and even though they kind of set him up that first episode when he's watching Hopper leave and Hopper doesn't trust him, where he's like waving, and I think in the review, guys, I mentioned like, something's up here. But he was a good dude really from the start to finish. And I love how all of the bad guys or all the other guys like got killed. Although it seems like there were a lot of good doctors. It looks like the douchebag doctor died, but I like how this guy, Dr. Owens, was like the one who was like really the dude that was trying to help everyone out. So kind of similar to Bob. But I just love the whole crew working together, and the action was great, and like it was intense and it was scary, and it was aesthetically great. And I just think it's a great episode, and it really makes you excited for the finale. And it's like, we got to close the gate, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? Where's the gate? Does that just mean the place back in the lab? Are they going to go back to the lab? What's up with the pit down below? They still have to burn that, but they can't hurt Will. They got to get the shadow out of him. There's a whole lot of stuff, guys, going on, but Eleven's back now. They're going to wreck people. But yeah, I just think it's just a phenomenal episode from start to finish. All right, guys, that's another episode of Talkin Hawkins, one of the better ones, I would say. So we got one more episode left in the season 2 finale next week, guys. So thanks for checking out the channel. Like, comment, subscribe if you did like the content, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.